Welcome to today's episode of First Name Basis, where we're pleased to introduce Lyndsey Botelho, who is a field sales consultant, a thought leader, a writer, and a motivator. Lyndsey, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Ishak. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to speak with you tonight.
So I'm very curious about HSS and HSP.
HSP and HSS is something I've discovered relatively recent that I definitely have. And it's not anything like a disorder. It's actually a trait. And it's very, very big. It's bigger than most people know. Because for myself anyway, most of my family and my friends had never even heard of HSP, which stands for highly sensitive person. However, my entire life, I've been told, stop being so sensitive, stop dwelling, stop being so upset, stop thinking so much. And I realized that I had this trait because of hearing it throughout my life, but then it actually clicked by seeing a documentary called Sensitive. And that put me on my journey of discovering the highly sensitive person. So being that, it really, I did a lot of research, I took several tests, and it just all kind of clicked for me when I figured this out. And part of my personality is different than what you would think as a sensitive person, because I'm not an introvert. I'm actually extremely extrovert.
Wow, okay. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, so I'm very bold. And my father is very similar to me. And through my research, I found that HSP is typically 50% genetic and 50% environmental. And
Okay.
some of it does have to do with trauma in early childhood. Okay. So my father and I have had parallel lives, and we've lived very similar traumas at the same ages. And we're both extremely assertive type personalities, type A's, extrovert, but we're both extremely sensitive at the same time. So there lies a conundrum, because when people think sensitive, they think quiet, shy, introvert.
Right, of course.
And they don't think someone that could be bold, assertive, outspoken, go-getter, ambitious, driven could be sensitive.
Is there a particular sensation, like sound or vision or touch or emotion,
Right.
that
Yeah.
you feel is as a sensitivity issue? Can you just help us with what the sensitivity feels
Right.
to you?
I am highly sensory overall. So all of my senses are heightened to some extent. So my first gift was dance, because I could feel the beat before it happened. And that's part of my sense, I believe, and my high sensitivity. And also, I'm very good at noticing things. However, that is a trait of HSP, is that you notice subtle cues in your environment more than other people. So I notice a lot of things. I sense something might happen before it does sometimes. So I'm very intuitive.
We call that precognition, and that means that you
Okay.
might have a sense that something is going to happen. And for me, occasionally I'll think someone's going to call me. And it might be someone I haven't spoken to in years. And I just can sense they're going to call. And sure enough,
Yeah.
within a day or two, they've called. And I just call that sort of precognitive moment. Is that
hmm
sensitivity? I think it absolutely is. Our entire planet is full of energy. In
hmm
fact, it is energy.
Yeah.
And there's things on the planet that emit that energy as well. And we as human beings emit so much energy. Some people are kind of blind and deaf, and some people, it would make sense, have much more vision and sensory capacity to sense that energy. So the next
hmm
question becomes, does that energy sometimes fire you up too much? Does it elevate you too much?
Part of being highly sensitive is you do have something called overstimulation.
Mm-hmm.
And before I knew about HSP, I would always say, I'm on overdrive right now. I'm overdrive. So it's like I passed the point of no return and I'm like wired, kind of. So as I found out more about HSP, I've learned that even though I'm extrovert, I still need time alone. And when I put myself in situations where I'm not getting that time alone, then I get on that overstimulation, that overdrive, and I'm a little more hyper, and sometimes it takes me longer to wind down than other people. And what I found through DBT therapy, which is good for your emotions, I did that for 5 years. So they teach emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness skills. So how to have those uncomfortable conversations, because what I've experienced is I'm one of those people that's very loyal, and I'll take a lot of things that I probably shouldn't take, and I just kind of swallow it down. And then I get to the point where I just don't want to talk to the person anymore, and I've had too much. And so that taught me how to really speak to people in those moments where I am uncomfortable, because I don't want to hurt them or hurt their feelings. But that puts me back by putting up with behaviors I don't really like or want to put up with.
So what I'm hearing then, and if this sounds wrong, please let me know. What I'm hearing is that you may actually be absorbing a lot of energy from other people, emotions, sensations, that fills you up. And then that might get you more activated, so to speak. And then once you get overfilled with that, you need to step back from that so that you can begin to recharge. So actually what we're seeing is kind of a cyclic experience with your own emotions. Does that fit?
Definitely. Yeah, that's very accurate. It definitely is that. I've been trying, now that I know more about myself with the HSP and how to manage what I have, I've been able to take a day on, a day off, a day on, a day off. So one day I'm full throttle, phone calls, face-to-face meetings, and just doing as much as I can. And then the next day I will still work, but it'll be more at home work, quiet work, office work, social media, stuff I can do from home. So I get that relaxation and that time to get myself kind of back to where I'm at and go at it again, so to speak.
So Lyndsey, also as you're speaking, I'm wondering if there's because you seem very aware of yourself. You seem very insightful and wonderfully aware of yourself. But was there a time when you weren't aware and you had to learn all this stuff? A time when you were just reacting and not really knowing what you were reacting to?
Yes, that was when I entered the DBT therapy, because what had happened to me, and I've learned through time and maturity that cohabitation may not be right for someone like me. The constant stimulation of that, being in small quarters, because each time it was a very small place we shared, and I was used to having my own space. And I think I need my own space as an HSP. So each were having reactions because it was too much. I was working and then him at home. I just didn't have a break at all. So now that's when I really reached out for DBT therapy and to get more help with my emotions.
Now, I did see that when you were a child, you were very involved in sports and activities like volleyball and those.
Yeah.
Now reflecting back, is it possible that those were outlets, physical outlets to manage your energy at the time?
Definitely. I've always been told I have a lot of energy, and some of my sales jobs were product demonstrations and speaking in front of an audience 25 times a day.
Wow.
But yes, as an athlete, I definitely was in volleyball as captain, and I had a lot of, and I used to take it out on the volleyball. I'd spike that volleyball as hard as I could. Yeah. So that was a healthy outlet at that time, because I didn't really understand everything. All I knew was I was emotional, but I was also a teenager. My parents had divorced. I had been sexually molested as a young child by family members. I was witness to domestic violence. So I had a lot of traumas happen. So I thought, I actually in high school overachieved. I signed up for everything I could sign up for. Possibly. It wasn't just sports. It was class treasurer, student council, key club, future problem solvers of America. I don't even know. Whatever they had, I signed up for. And that was kind of how I got my energy out, through athletics, through academics, and overachieving.
Now, you don't have to answer any questions I ask you, but I'm just sort of generally, do you think people who have hypersensitive issues in general might be more likely to get into addictions or even high-risk behaviors just without even really realizing it, because they're just trying to discharge this energy, but at the same time, it might lead them down some very difficult or challenging or traumatic pathways?
Yes, I think that could be possible. With HSP, you feel more than other people, so you actually feel 10 times more pain and 10 times more pleasure. So for me, I definitely got into some drugs in my early 20s, and it numbed my pain because
Mm.
I didn't know how to handle everything that happened to me being extra sensitive with all that trauma, and then never really talking about it or never ever being validated about anything that happened. And I just didn't know how to manage it all. So I think in that instance, a lot of people could turn to that, alcohol. Or what helped me was dancing. When I did that, I was in the club scene. So it was mostly like when I was at dance clubs. So it never got really into that dark place where I was doing it alone by myself. I was always out. We were dancing all night. And it was kind of that type of atmosphere. And the dancing actually really did help because I don't feel any pain when I'm dancing. I'm in a flow, and I am very extroverted. So I've set boundaries now where on LinkedIn, I get approached almost every day by men. Just, it could be innocent. I like your post, da da da, whatever. However, I definitely text different if someone's married than if they're completely single, because I am extroverted and I'm in my 40s. I'm a grown woman and I am flirtatious. That is my nature. So, but I have boundaries and I've learned to set clear boundaries right up front. So that is never an issue.
Thank you so much for answering that so candidly. I think a lot of people who are watching this might strongly identify with a lot of what you're saying. Men, but also especially women, I think. And I think, and that's why I'm so glad to have you here in this moment, because I think that your sheer force of personality and your confidence with describing things that are actually very vulnerable might make it easier for someone else to not only say, wow, look at her, but maybe say, oh my gosh, I can relate to what she's saying. Maybe this is something that explains what I've been going through.
Definitely. I really want to make it my mission to build awareness for this because there's 7 billion people in the world. It's 20% of people have this. And yet, I know not everything is end all be all Reddit, but the HSP has about 39,000 members when there's billions of people that have this highly sensitive trait. It's not a disorder, it's a trait. There is no medication. It's something that you need to learn, love, and adapt. And you can with practice, but what's upsetting to me lots is just the non-open-mindedness of people and the non-compassion of people, non-understanding, and judgments and just labeling of things that they don't even know anything about, not even close, unfortunately.
Well, you're giving me a great segue into my area, which is empathy. And for me, empathy isn't trying to imagine someone's experience as your own. It's actually trying to imagine someone's experience the way they experience it, even if you have no reference point inside of yourself to understand it. So if I'm speaking to you, Lyndsey, and you're saying, I'm very sensitive to that, or I felt this in a very sensitive way, if I said, well, I didn't feel it that way, so therefore I'm nullifying your experience, that's not empathy. If I say, wow, tell me more about that and how that felt to you, whether I've experienced that myself or not, then I can actually try to empathize with that, especially you're so well spoken in how you describe what you're experiencing, that can allow me to imagine how you're experiencing it.
It's been a beautiful thing. I've gotten a lot of new friends, but I've lost a lot of friends also through this process.
And when you say you've lost them, and I don't mean to pry, but what mechanism have you lost them by?
Well, just them being not really saying they're concerned, but not really being there for me and really being concerned, so to speak. And then part of my personality is not just being sensitive extrovert, it's also being high sensation seeking.
Can you tell us
Now,
about that?
yeah, so with that, that's a little unique. So what I think would be best for me to do is I'd like to read a couple of the questions on the test for highly sensation seeking, which is also on the High Sensitive Person website by Elaine Aron. She's the doctor that really, did a lot of research and kind of got pioneered this HSP, and her husband's also into psychology and psychology. So I think that would make it better for us to understand.
Yeah, let's hear some of those questions.
Okay. All right. So this is the high sensation seeking. It said, if it were safe, I would like to take a drug that would cause me to have strange new experiences. I would say yes. And I have. And now it's used for therapy. I was 20 years ahead. What can I say? I can become almost painfully bored in some conversations. Yes. My father, he's a chemical engineer. And
Okay.
I don't know, sometimes when he talks, I just like automatically am like somewhere else. I don't know, but I have that happen. It's happened. I mean, I try not to let it happen because I am a curious person, but I do get bored easily, like a lot of times.
Of course.
Yeah. I would rather go to a new place I may not like than go back again to a place I know I like. Yes. I like new things. I get bored. I don't like long term. I own a car. I've never owned a home. And I'm usually a lease person. Like skiing, rock climbing, or surfing. Yes, yes, and yes. The only one I haven't done is surfing because I have a neck injury. I have a metal disc, but I'm a champion boogie boarder, trust.
Okay.
Got that. I get restless if I stay home for too long. Definitely. I can do a day, but then after that, I need to get out. It's like I feel like an urge, like something's pulling me out. It's hard for me to stay still a lot also. Anyhow, okay. I don't like waiting with nothing to do. Well, I hate waiting, period. I do keep busy, but I am impatient. So I said, yeah, I wouldn't want to wait with nothing to do. That would drive me nuts.
Now, as you're describing these questions, some people are going to think, well, that sounds like ADD, attention deficit disorder, and maybe even with some hyperactivity. Is there an effort to differentiate this from that particular condition?
So I do not have an attention. I am slightly hyper, and I have been impulsive in my past, but I'm working on that and I'm more aware. So I'm not as impulsive as I used to be. That's taking work because it isn't just a magic pill that you take to make things go away.
Right, exactly.
You have to work to make things better.
Are there more questions there?
Yes, there are. I rarely watch a movie more than once. True. I enjoy the unfamiliar. Yes. If I see something unusual, I will go out of my way to check it out. Yes. I get bored spending time with the same people every day. Yes. Hence why I've never been married. My friends say it is hard to predict what I want to do. Perhaps. That one's like iffy, but I could see it saying yes. I like to explore a new area. Yes. I avoid having a daily routine. That one, I do like some structure, but I kind of like having time to just go out and do my own thing also.
In the 1960s, John Bowlby, who was a world famous psychiatrist at the time, was asked to do research on attachment. And attachment means how well connected were kids to their parents at the time. And they had some kids who were overly connected, some kids who were very loosely connected, and some kids who were comfortably connected. And the basis of the idea is a healthy attachment lead to a child that can explore their environment in a healthy way. And as you're reading those questions, I'm thinking that Lyndsey loves to explore. She's the kind of person that would have climbed Mount Everest when anyone said you can't do that, or jump out of an airplane, or scuba dive to the bottom of the ocean. So the world needs explorers to make sure the world isn't flat, like Christopher Columbus. And so we've relied on people like you for centuries to find certain truths. But at the same time, and I don't mean to upset you, we've locked up people like you because we're not familiar with your exploratory talents, especially artists, you know, who were Van Gogh, for example, people who were really trying to explore new territory, and they weren't understood. Can you relate to that?
Definitely. Yes, very much so. I think that's why I'm losing people in my life, so to speak, and I also have taken control of negativity. And because I am very sensitive, I can sense things, I can feel things, even in people's tones, especially, and facial, mannerisms or, expressions. And I just don't want that in my life anymore. So, but yes, definitely. I think people that are not the norm, so to speak, people get scared of that.
It seems like there may have been a long struggle for you to find yourself, first of all, to kind of organize yourself so you can feel safe on the inside, but still be an explorer and try new things. But at the same time, again, I don't mean this to sound mean, but that kind of floating from place to place, situation to situation, and being able to be stable, but at the same time, people may not see that, like the boat that it really doesn't have an anchor. And some people might find that difficult to understand.
Right. My father's one of them. So he says, you have no responsibilities, you have no mortgage, you have no husband, you have no kids. And I said, guess what? I'm extremely happy that way. Too bad. But he doesn't, it's hard for him to understand it.
Well, I've learned, I've been a therapist and psychiatrist for a long time, that people are different. And just like we have people who are deaf, we have people who can hear too much, hyperacusis, for example. And what you're describing so eloquently is that there's people who are kind of numb, and we have people who are just almost in an over hyper feeling state. And if you can't sense that, I know that you can torture someone by exposing them to loud rock music for 72 hours without any interruption. Well, there's people that actually feel that sound is like that to them. It's just too much.
Right.
And if you can dance to it and you can burn some of that off that way, that's fantastic. But just it may take a while to discover the things that can help you feel some peace and calm inside yourself while you're still being hypersensitive.
I mean, I practice yoga. I definitely work at things. I take nature walks every day, typically an hour and a half a day by myself.
Sounds great.
I bird watch. I'm one with nature. So I'm doing things to help myself so that I can enjoy myself out and be somewhat, calm in that situation. I'm noticing now that I just leave when I need to leave instead of hanging out longer or extending myself more than I need to or should. I'm just taking it back home and resting, kind of thing. Part of the reason I stopped on that sensitive documentary is because I saw one of my favorite artists from high school, Alanis Morissette. And I really resonated with her album, Jagged Little Pill. I was 16 when it came out. I was 95. In California. Yep. And also HSPs have very good memories. My memory is very sharp. And I have, so that made me interested. Now, I never thought of myself as that much of a creative person until more recently, because even though when I was a child, I would write books and I'd win awards for books that I would, just make up or drawings. I learned I can rhyme pretty easily. And it's kind of a flow state I get into and I can just kind of go with it. This one's called HSP Extro, misdiagnosed for life. When you are an HSP, highly sensitive person feeling stress, anxiety, fear without any lesson on how to cope and understand these overwhelming emotions on my heart's muscle strands. Early life was just being quiet and observing how to please my dad so that his temper wouldn't be so serving. Hurt, sadness, anger, and yelling for a child HSP made me stay outside alone, distracting myself from thee. From age 2 on, my recollections are intact and photo memory became part of my facts. I observed and watched with attentiveness without speaking. I didn't utter my first word until age 3. I excelled in school as I went to a Montessori small school with its phonetical glory, finished my reading books at my own pace, and the teachers encouraged those learning in our own ways. Competing with myself to be better and enjoyed advanced level reading, I had a gifted intelligence according to the IQ test. However, my temperament was not the best. Most learned behaviors from those around me. My sad turned to anger in me, especially when my dad found a new family. Fighting between my parents was a regular occurrence, and no, we didn't protect the fam biz with fire insurance. I had a sharp memory of the past early on from age 2. Things seemed to bother me more than others left in my brain to stew. Stop being so sensitive. Stop being so sad. Stop being so sad. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. Except no one understood the hurt that cuts deep, especially being an HSP. HSPs have a neurological difference in the midbrain or amygdala, where extra emotions are felt. And when in love, boy, do HSPs' hearts melt. We feel 10 times more pleasure and emotional pain. Hence why when we cry, it is like a heavy rain. Our thinking is deeper. So when we dwell, HSPs are trying to get rid of their brains with the swell of emotions that affect us. Our overstimulation and hyperness make us quite sus. To the average Joe, we need medication to calm down. The docs find it easier to prescribe pills than to get to the root of our frowns. Being an HSP extrovert has definitely caused some friction. Extremely intuitive, feeling energies, plus speaking only nonfiction. I feel and sense and notice more things around me, hence why I'm called Eagle Eye. For 2 decades, I listened to silly docs that didn't even try to hear my cries. As a young adult diagnosed with depression, PMDD, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, docs say, take a big pharma pill, and oh yeah, don't forget to pay my bill. As the docs say, stop being so sensitive, stop being so sad, stop being so sad. Don't get mad, don't get mad. No one understands the hurt that cuts deep, especially being an HSP. HSPs are extremely sensitive to energies, good and bad. And when supported with the good juju, we are creative geniuses of mad. My HSP gifts give me a deeper connection to love, music, history, dancing, books, writing, learning, being curious, and my favorite, creative making. As many people laugh and smile as possible on earth, because being an HSP extrovert at birth has given me blessings I didn't even know I had. And for now, I sure don't ever get mad. I know being HSP puts me in favor and blessed. Now to learn how to shut my extra mouth and no creating mess. I know the truth and I don't hold back. I would rather tell you to your face than stab you in the back. So people think I'm a bitchy witch because of my honest mouth. To be honest, TBH is the only way HSP extra lives. And yes, I get a talkative dry mouth. Good thing I deal with New York people. They don't mind the truth as long as it's quick, like pulling out a tooth. HSP is a gift. Be sensitive, be sensitive. It's your truth. Highly sensitive people are special and enhanced. Now, please give learning about HSP a chance. Highly sensitive people are legit. Just don't lie, because we definitely pick up on that bullshit.